Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns Creatures series of comedy, fantasy novels, and short stories. With me is Cameron, aka Prince Phantom. And today we're going to start the first in our series of best feats list. We're going to be talking about the Cameron's picks for the best feats for any particular classes or subclasses. And we're going to kick things off with the Artificer.
Yeah, so the Artificer is a class that really only ever cares about its intelligence most of the time, which means it's actually pretty free to pick up a lot of feats. Some classes require multiple different ability scores, which makes it harder to pick up feats. But the Artificer is not one of those. So when you play an Artificer, you can actually expect to pick up a decent amount of these, especially if you start as a race that gets a feat at level 1, or if your table just gives a feat at level 1.
Now, I've seen you go through the process of writing these lists. I know for a lot of them, you'll include generically good feats like tough or lucky that aren't specifically related to the class or subclass you're talking about. Now, there's generically good all across the board. So when you're making these lists, do you intentionally leave those out, or like what I'm asking is the feats that you actually list, do you prioritize them over how do I word this?
So I think what you're asking is, do I look for specific feats that work specifically with the class rather than generically good feats?
All right, here's another way to word it. All right, say you chose a specific feat for the specific subclass. Well, is that because it's better than tough, or because
yes?
All right. So like
yes.
if tough worked better, then you would list tough as priority.
And in fact, there are some of these that I will list tough as an actual good pick.
Yeah.
That is specifically good for a specific type of character. Things like tough, things like lucky, they're good feats, but generally speaking, they're not feats that I'm going to be looking to pick up until levels 16, maybe even your level 19 pick. So, they're good fillers. Some people think lucky in particular is overpowered. It's not. It changes 3 rolls over the course of your entire day, maybe. It's not that crazy. Everybody calm down.
All right,
good, but it's not crazy.
I've rambled enough. Let's get into the best feats. Once again, today we're doing best feats for Artificer. Just regular old Artificer.
So the Artificer, and I will list these feats in the order in which I think you should pick them up. So some feats are so good that you want to take them as soon as possible, be that at level 1 or level 4, whenever you're getting your first feat. Other feats maybe don't have the synergy. Like, for example, maybe you get a class feature that has a really good synergy with a certain feat, but you don't get that class feature until level 10. So you probably don't want to take that feat until you get close to that level.
Right.
So we have sort of a list of priority here, and also a list of when things start to actually come online and have good synergies. So
what are we kicking off with?
We're starting off with Sharpshooter. Now,
solid choice.
I picked Sharpshooter because a lot of different reasons. A lot of the Artificer's subclasses, and the Artificer in particular, is a very subclass defined class. An alchemist and a battlesmith play very differently. But pretty much all of them can be a ranged character. So both the alchemist doesn't have a lot of great things it can do, but it can be a ranged character. The artillerist is definitely built to be a ranged character. The armorer has a ranged option between its 2 armor options. And the battlesmith, while definitely supporting a melee option, is a much better character by being at range. Okay. Because being at range in 5th edition is just strictly better than being in melee most of the time.
Most of the time, yes.
And there's a lot of reasons for that. You get to stay away from danger. You're able to pick your targets much more easily. With Sharpshooter, especially with the huge range you've got, even with a hand crossbow, you've got 100-foot range. That's going to span the distance of most battle maps.
Speaking of hand crossbow, I noticed A lot of these you'll lump Sharpshooter and Crossbow Expert together. This one, it appears you did not.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. There are some subclasses where I think that would work well. The Alchemist, I think, could do that. The Artillerist has an issue because the Artillerist's Eldritch Cannon, which is the defining feature of their subclass, requires a bonus action. The Armorer could, with the lightning launcher, basically you have to mix the lightning launcher with shooting a crossbow. So you'll shoot the lightning launcher, then a crossbow, then shoot it again for crossbow expert. You can do that, and that's actually a good way to maximize damage. But you can also just stick with Sharpshooter and just do 2 lightning launcher attacks, and that's fine too. It's not as necessary because the armor does have other uses for its bonus action as well. And the last one, the Battlesmith, is entirely defined by its bonus action, which is to allow its pet to do anything. So,
so yeah, that's the big advantage of Crossbow Expert is being able to use
bonus
your
action attack
for another attack. If you have
yeah.
a solid use for your bonus action already, yeah, I can see why you'd leave that off, or at least prioritize other feats over it.
Yeah, so if you're wanting to play a ranged Battlesmith, I would actually maybe look at the Longbow as your best damage option. Now I will say, there is an argument for just going ahead and taking Crossbow Expert as a Battlesmith, because if you don't do anything with your bonus action to command your pet, they just take the dodge action, and you basically turn your pet into a tank. You turn them into someone who's just constantly taking the dodge action, constantly trying to draw in attacks. You can do that, and that does work. I understand that most players are not wanting to use their pet just to take the dodge action, though.
Yeah.
So I know that doesn't fulfill the fantasy that most people are looking for, even if it is a genuinely good play strategy. And I will, of course, mention, if you're wanting to play a melee character, take Great Weapon Master instead.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a worse character. Just understand that.
Well, surely that's build dependent and what you want to use it for.
It is a little bit. For example, our own Guardian Armorer that we did earlier did take Great Weapon Master with its build, but that was a very specific type of build that I made. That I will also admit to you, the Infiltrator Armorer probably makes a better character. I just like the Guardian Armor more. So, another feat that I'll mention in along the same lines of talking about the Armor subclass is Heavy Armor Master.
Okay.
So we didn't take this in our Armor build. That's because it didn't quite fit in the character sheet. But if you're wanting to go full defense with the Guardian Armor, just nothing but defense, then Heavy Armor Master allows you to subtract 3 from the damage of any non-magical physical damage. That doesn't sound like a lot, but it adds up. It's especially good in the low tiers where monsters are struggling to even do 3 damage to you.
Yeah.
A goblin runs up and stabs you and rolls a d4 with the dagger +1. You might negate all of that damage.
Bounces off you, yeah.
Yeah. So if you can, I will say, you can't really take it at level 1 because armorers don't have proficiency with heavy armor at level 1. So you have to wait until level 4 to take this. But if you'd like to, you can.
Well, level 4, we're starting to break out of the early tiers there.
Yeah, we are, but we're also now getting to the point where monsters are making multiple attacks. So now instead of subtracting damage from 1 attack, we're subtracting damage from 2 attacks.
Yeah.
So now instead of -3, it's -6, and so on and so forth. So, people say that this feat doesn't scale super well. At the highest of high tiers, I would agree. But for most of the early to mid tier, I would say it's pretty good.
All right,
if defense is all you care about.
Yeah. All right, what else we got?
This one, Magic Initiate. This is a feat that is generically good for a lot of characters, but not everyone. So I will take a minute to mention it. Magic Initiate, obviously the best use case of it is to get Find Familiar. There's no other first level spell that's going to outperform Find Familiar. It works especially great on the 2 armor subclasses that don't get extra attack, because your familiar can provide the help action to you to attack whatever you're wanting, and you get advantage on your 1 attack. It's still good on the other 2, subclasses that do get extra attack, but you'll just notice a bigger increase in damage from the Alchemist and the Artillerist.
Yeah.
And of course, you get some good cantrips. Artificers already get some pretty great cantrips, including Guidance. But you can also, but Artificers only get 2 cantrips, and 2 of the subclasses, the Artillerist and the Battlesmith, basically have to pick Mending because that's what heals their pet.
Yeah, that's. I mean,
So
I've always been so unimpressed with the Mending spell, but here it's a necessity.
It's very important. Yeah, it's very important. So since you're basically forced to take the Mending cantrip, you really only have 1 cantrip selection with those 2. So Magic Initiate adding 2 here is actually very good. So next up that I wanted to mention, for the 2 subclasses that don't get a ton of use out of their bonus action, being the Alchemist and the Armorer, Telekinetic is a pretty good feat.
Yes, another reason to forgo Crossbow Expert.
Yep.
I think Telekinetic is one of the generically good ones. That depends upon a lot upon your party makeup, and if you got other casters doing area of effect spells and stuff. It's a lot of fun.
The Alchemist comes with a couple of area of effect spells of its own. That's one of the few good. The Alchemist expanded spell list is one of the few good things about it. But it does get some neat spells, and the Artificer spell list does actually include some very cool area of effect spells that you can pull people into with Telekinetic. But obviously, it works great with any other team synergies. And I will always mention Telekinetic's ability to get your allies out of danger, as if you can pull them out of a grapple, which requires no roll whatsoever, then they're freed from that grapple and are able to move. If your wizard buddy is standing next to the ogre and the ogre's about to smash him in the face, but he doesn't want to take an opportunity attack by running away, but he also wants to do something other than the disengage action, pull him 5 feet away. He's good to run. Yep. So there's Telekinetic is a feat that you look at on paper and you say, how many uses could there really be for a 5-foot push? But in reality, when you play with it, Mage Hand, and an improvement to Mage Hand, if you already have Mage Hand, and +1 to our intelligence. So all around good stuff.
Yeah.
Another one that I'll mention for the armor, specifically the Defender armor, Sentinel feat. That armor is really specifically wanting to keep enemies close to them so the attacks stay on them and away from their allies. Sentinel is a good way of doing that. And that's really about it. Sentinel, you, of course, attack. If you hit an opportunity attack, the creature's speed is reduced to 0. And that allows you to keep enemies near you.
That's worth a mention, but we'll dive deeper into that when we actually talk about the armor or subclass.
Yeah, and other marshals in general as well.
Yeah.
So, other one that is also that also provides an increase to our intelligence. Fey Touched. It's a very good feat. Armorers, most do not get access to Misty Step, and definitely don't get access to Silvery Barbs.
Yeah.
And I will mention Artificers as half-casters are a bit more starved for spell slots, so having 2 free castings is very nice.
It's also, I mean, you did touch on it, but a couple of these, which ones? Fey Touched and Magic Initiate do give you a little boost to your intelligence, which you said before was the big priority with the Artificer. It also means upon character creation, if you're planning this out ahead, you can dock it a couple of points or whatever to prioritize things you'll need later down the line, but don't necessarily want to spend points on.
Yeah, Fey Touched. Magic Initiate does not provide an increase to an ability score.
Oh, it doesn't?
But
what was I thinking?
Fey Touched, Telekinetic, they're the 2 that we've mentioned.
Oh, Telekinetic. Okay, all right.
Yep. Yeah, but yeah, both of those, they allow you to set your intelligence. Even if you know you're going to take 2 of these feats, then have an increase to intelligence. So if you know you're going to take Fey Touched and Telekinetic, then you can even say your intelligence is an 18. You can take Fey Touch, put it up to 19. Then take Telekinetic and bring it up to a 20. That's okay too.
Right.
It doesn't have to. increase your intelligence to make it worth the feat slot.
No,
So,
that's gravy. Yeah.
it's just gravy. Yeah. Yep. So Fey Touched, great. I don't like Shadow Touched quite as much on Artificers. The one Artificer that cares about stealth is the Infiltrator Armor subclass, and it already gets invisibility.
Okay.
So we don't necessarily need it there as much. And Silent Image is probably your best option for the first level spell from either Illusion or Necromancy. And the Silent Image is just, it's a great spell. I love it. But it doesn't really hold a candle to Silvery Barbs.
No.
So, next up, Warcaster. This is a generically good feat for casters. Most of the great Artificer spells require concentration. So and now I should mention, Artificers are one of the only 2 casting classes that get Constitution saving throw proficiency at level 1. The other being Sorcerer.
Is that the reason you're bringing this in at level 8?
Yeah. It's not quite as important, and also Artificers have things to do other than concentrate on spells. Mm-hmm. At least most of them do. So you may not find yourself concentrating on a spell in every single combat until you actually get enough spell slots to be reasonably doing that, which is around at level 8.
All right.
So yeah. I should also mention an interesting thing about Warcaster in particular. Every Artificer spell requires material components. It is written in the Artificer class's rules that every Artificer spell, when cast by an Artificer, requires the material components, those being some form of artisan's tools. Now, there are some subclasses. For example, the Armorer can substitute their armor as the spellcasting focus for the material component. So they don't have to have anything else in their hands. Their armor suffices. The Battlesmith can use its magic weapon that it's able to get. But I think the Artillerist also gets a workaround with this, I think, but the Alchemist gets no such workaround. Meaning, if you want to build an Alchemist that is wielding weapons or doing other things with their hand, you need Warcaster to be able to cast basically any of your spells. So,
I mean, I'm glad that's on there, but Warcaster's great anyway.
Yeah, Warcaster's good enough. Alchemists might need it especially. You may with an Alchemist actually want to take this very early on, depending on your build.
Or you might not want to play an Alchemist.
That's also fair. Yes. We're almost done. These higher levels, I give some feats that kind of round out your character.
Well, I noticed we've gone from not worrying about concentration at all. You got them back to back here.
Well, actually, Resilient, we're taking for Wisdom.
Oh, right, man. I should read this.
Because we already have Constitution.
Right.
Yeah. So basically, I like every one of my characters that worries about casting spells to have concentration saving throw proficiency somehow. That's normally through Resilient Constitution. We already have it, though. So we'll take Resilient for the second best saving throw proficiency, which is Wisdom. We also have another ability that we get at level 4 called Flash of Genius that allows us to add our intelligence modifier to saving throws, and I think also attack rolls, but for the purposes of this, saving throws, to a failed saving throw. So if we have a +5, we can add that to a failed saving throw to potentially succeed, which is great. And that stacks with Resilient Wisdom to make us go, even if you have only a 12 Wisdom, which is a +1 modifier, now you're going to like a +11 modifier.
All right, let me ask you a question here. You say Wisdom is the second best saving throw.
Yep.
Constitution I get for your concentration checks. However, from my own personal experience, it seems like I make a lot more dex saving throws than anything else.
That's true. Let me ask you this question. what are you making those dex saving throws against? What is the consequence of failing those dexterity saving throws most of the time?
Dying.
That's damage, right?
Yeah, massive amounts of damage. Yes.
It's also normally damage from what types of damage? Fire.
Fire. Yeah. Fire.
Artificers
yes,
get
most fire.
Artificers get absorb elements.
Okay.
And also, I will tell you, and this is the reason that I think that a certain paladin subclass is a little bit overrated. We'll get to that eventually. Spells dealing damage to you is the least of your concerns. If a spellcaster chooses to throw a fireball at you, I count that as a win because they could have used hold person on the whole party. They could have upcast hold person and paralyzed the entire party. So I will tell you that a wisdom save, more often than not, is far more debilitating than a dexterity save. The worst a dexterity save can do to you most of the time is damage, and most of the time you've got absorb elements for that damage. A wisdom save can turn your character off for an entire combat. You know,
yeah, I've seen the worst that hold person does, and it's tragic.
And hold person isn't even the worst of it.
Yeah.
Dominate person.
Oh yeah.
Now your team has to fight you, or at least take damage from you. Now the opponent that is a huge swing in action economy.
Sure.
So it's not as important in the early tiers, which is why I'm fine waiting until level 12 to take it. Because you don't face as many wisdom saves in the early tiers. But when you get to higher level play, and your dungeon master starts taking some of the shackles off, and starts actually throwing threatening things at you, and starts realizing that a monster that makes 2 claws on a bite attack isn't enough to threaten a level 12 party anymore. Because I've been there, I've DM'd the high level play. You have to start throwing some tougher stuff at them, and that tougher stuff normally comes from wisdom saves.
All right. Yeah, I don't have.
That's a great question. That's a great question.
Of experience with higher level play. I usually don't live that long because I fail my dex throws.
Take absorb elements more. You guys just did a video on it. It's very good.
Yes.
It's a great spell. And another one that I'll just mention briefly here. Most artificers don't have a great use for their reaction all the time. We just mentioned absorb elements, but that doesn't come up every turn. So Gift of the Gem Dragon is a pretty cool feat. When you get hit, you can use a reaction to try and force somebody away. If your artificer is wanting to play a bit more, keep away, then it's a decent feat to pick up. It also increases our intelligence, which we love that too. But I definitely wouldn't consider taking it until higher levels, like level 16, level 12.
I forgot. What exactly does this one do?
Gift of the Gem Dragon, when you are hit, you can use a reaction, proficiency modifier times per day to force a strength save. And if they fail, they are pushed back 10 feet and take some damage.
Okay. So yeah, this synergizes potentially well with Telekinetic. If you've got something to push them into, this will push them back, give them some damage, and it's a reaction, so you still have a bonus action to push them some more.
Yep. Yeah, a great way to weaponize Gift of the Gem Dragon is to stand just outside of a damaging area of effect, tempt the monster to come into it, to walk out of it, to hit you, bounce them right back in, and they'll take some more damage.
Yeah.
So, and also just be careful, it is a strength saving throw. It's normally pretty easy to tell when something is good at strength saving throws, because they normally got a lot of muscles. So the giant, probably not going to fail. The I don't know, the pack of wolves probably will fail.
Yeah. All right, cool.
So yeah, just a real quick refresher on what I thought were good feats for the Artificer. Sharpshooter works with pretty much everybody. Heavy Armor Master is great for those who want to focus on defense, like the Armor. Magic Initiate, Find Familiar is good for everybody. Telekinetic for those who don't have a great use for their bonus action. Sentinel's good if you want to play the more defensive party tank. Fey Touched provides a lot of spells that we don't normally get and increases our intelligence. Warcaster helps secure our concentration. Resilient Wisdom, great for the most debilitating type of save in the upper tier of play. And Gift of the Gem Dragon as a neat filler feat there at the end to use our reaction.
All right. That was the best feats for an Artificer. Thank you, Cameron, for joining us and or for being here. And thank you, audience, for listening and watching and all that. And like the channel, subscribe, and hit all the buttons. Tune in next time for more best feats for something else. All right.
All right.
That's it.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.